Well, I'm so excited, Liz, to have you on this show today. And for those of you who don't know, Liz and I first actually got to know each other through social media on Instagram. And lo and behold, we were just saying how many accounts there are that start with menopause, which is great because it means that we're really going somewhere. And I saw Liz and her partner doing lots of reels and, sitting in someone's kitchen talking a lot about diet and menopause. And then on further inspection, I saw she had a great book called The Menopause Diet Plan, which we're going to talk a little bit about. So that's how we first got to know each other, Liz. And I'm excited to have you on the show. I pretty much bribe everyone to come on my show and, share their story and why they're so interested in menopause. So, I wanted to just hand it over to you to say, you know, what really inspired you to kind of take all your years of nutrition, counseling, and education and work with women to kind of now steer into menopause territory?
Well, you did mention my partner, and she's also my best friend. And we met in college, and her name is Hillary Wright. And we've gone through life together, basically.
Wow, that
Yeah.
is so cool.
hmm And we are both married. We both live in the towns that we grew up in. We both have three children, and they're around the same age. She has all boys. I have all girls. But we have a lot of history with each other, and we kept kicking around the idea of working with each other one day. What should we do? And then we were just always so busy with work and kids. And then this just finally came up, and I said, "Look, we really need to write a book about menopause." We just went through it, and we're in the postmenopausal phase. And they say write what you know, and we certainly know it,
Yeah.
but we also know a lot about women's health in general. So I'm also a pregnancy nutrition author. I've written a couple of pregnancy books, and Hillary is a fertility expert as well as a
Wow.
PCOS expert.
That's so the two of you together are like magic for menopause.
Yeah. So what we do is we just combined it all, and we wrote the book. And it's just everything we really think that women need to know to go forward in terms of diet and nutrition from, perimenopause on.
That is so fun. To work with your best friend has to be, well, gosh, I'm sure there's a lot of emotions. But so cool. Tell me a little bit about, you mentioned are in the process or in the menopause transition. How was that like for you? Because one of the biggest things that women say to me that bothers them is their stubborn weight gain. And so, how did that go for you?
It happened. That's how it went for me. And Hillary always says, you can tell people that I gain weight too. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to tell people that you gain weight. That's your story. But my story was that, I did put on about 10 pounds, and I was kind of shocked by it because, when you're a health professional, you have all the answers, right? I mean, if I do A, I'll get, B. Well, that's the way you think. And, when it comes to menopause and perimenopause, it doesn't always work that way. It's not as linear as it seems. So I thought, why is this happening to me? I haven't changed my exercise and my eating routine. So then what I had to do is take a look at my exercise and eating routine and say, where's better?
So many of my patients say that.
Yeah.
And I trust me, I always err on the side of believing my patients, but you always kind of wonder because it's so subjective. Like I haven't changed anything, but unless you kind of eat the same thing every single day at the same exact time, how do you
Mhm.
know if that's true?
That's sure for sure. And I certainly don't do that, but I'm pretty close to that. But I mean, always exercising, 5, 6 days a week. I used to be an athlete in high school, and I just like to work out. But I found that there were so many extras that I was grabbing through the day, like, oh, a handful of M&Ms, or maybe I'll have an extra few bites of this or that, eating when I wasn't hungry. I think
Uh-huh.
that's what I'm going to basically say.
Yeah.
So, so really, kind of dialing that back helped. Changing my exercise routine a little bit to do more weight training, which people think is funny. Well, how does that burn calories? How do you, control your weight? But we can talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've lost about 5 or 6 of the 10 pounds, but
Yay.
I don't really think that the rest is ever going to come off, because as Hillary and I like to say, we made a reel about it, there is no way that we are starving ourselves. So I think that part of what you have to do is find your happy place, but you have to be willing to accept that your body has changed. Your metabolism has slowed down. The fat that you do gain migrates to your belly, as you know, and that, there is just, unless you really want to go low calorie and really risk your health, I don't think that, I think that you have to have some level of acceptance.
Yeah. Let me warm up with you for a second because I want to ask you this question. What does the data really show on going ultra low calorie in menopause? I saw a really great lecture about ultra low calorie for women trying to get pregnant and to probably starve away some of the metabolic dysregulation from probably PCOS. But what does it mean to go under, 1200 or 1000 calories if you're a 52-year-old?
I think it's dangerous, quite frankly. When we
Yeah.
did diet plans in the book, only because some women like diet plans, we did not go below 1600 calories. And even then, I was struggling. I did the diet plans and I was struggling to get all the nutrients in on 1600 calories.
Mm-hmm.
And there are nutrients that you can't just take pills for.
Okay.
You can't take pills for phytonutrients found in fruits and vegetables that you're not eating,
Mm-hmm.
under when you're on an 800 calorie diet or even 1,000 calories a day.
Right.
Fiber. You can't get the fiber. You can't get everything that's in the matrix of the whole food.
Mm-hmm.
So important to your bones, your brain, your heart. The other thing is what it does to your head. And,
Let's talk about it.
yeah, I get it. I mean, I get it. I've struggled with my weight my whole life, but then menopause really, did a number on my weight.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to let it do a number on my head.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to be the yo-yo dieter. There's
Mm-hmm.
no way that you can sustain 1,200 calories and be healthy. You just can't. 1,200 calories a day is the amount of calories a toddler needs,
Oh
not
my
a
gosh.
52-year-old. Not a 52-year-old. Nope, no way. You've got to
Right.
nourish your body.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I wanted to pause on that question because I hear it all the time. Patients will say, I've not changed a thing. I've not changed my exercise. And I'm at the point where I'm just going to starve myself. That's all that I think that I can do. But there's probably dangers in that. And one other thing I wanted to kind of loop back to is that maybe our eating habits, although we don't think they've changed, maybe has because it's like the licks and the grabs that probably add up, right? The
They do
licks.
add up. They do add up. That second drink, topping off that glass of wine when you were trying to limit yourself to one drink. I mean, all the places.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say you have a very razor thin calorie margin. When you were in your 20s, you had a lot of room to play with. Like I'd just go out and say, "Oh, I'm just going to go out for a run and just run off whatever I just ate." It does not work that way when
Uh-huh.
you're after menopause. It doesn't seem to. So you're working with a much thinner calorie margin, and you really do have to kind of call into question what are those things that you're picking at all through the day and going a little bit overboard on. The other thing is that women may not notice it, but they're no longer running around after kids. Um,
Mm.
Fitting more, that takes a lot of energy. Just even
Yeah.
holding, the other day we were talking over Zoom and you were holding the baby the whole time. Well, that takes energy. And it's
Mm.
all those little, all that calorie expenditure. Maybe it's only an extra 100 to 200 calories a day. It matters with time.
You know what? On Sundays, when I often don't exercise, I love exercise, by the way. I love exercise and I would do it all the time because I love the endorphins and it's morphed over time. It used to be, when I had no kids and I would exercise for like an hour a day, primarily just because I loved it. But Sundays I don't often get the chance to exercise, but I will always hit my steps. My rings will always close because I'm running around. I think of the calories I must spend just running around picking up the stuff that my toddlers are just like, I'm done with this plop.
Exactly. Going up and down the stairs burns calories,
So
walking
there's
the
like this
dog.
Yeah, there's something about where you are in your life in that stage, as well as your age and your energy requirements. The old thing that I always remember from, like middle school is like calories in, calories out. We don't necessarily have to go there because that one's been talked about a lot, but they probably change.
Yeah. Your calorie needs definitely change. And of course, as you get older, you're losing muscle gradually, and muscle burns more calories than fat, which is why I was talking about the necessity for strength training, resistance training. It doesn't have to be with weights; it can be with your own body weight, but really working those muscles, building them up, and that's also a way to maintain your balance and your strength and your coordination, and to be more independent throughout your entire life. I mean, my mother worked out for 20 minutes every day. My mother worked. She was one of those rare moms who worked back in the 70s and
Uh-huh.
80s. And she worked, a 50-hour week because she also had her own business. And she rode the exercise bike for 20 minutes every day. My mother was
Good for,
92 when she died.
good for
And
her.
yeah, I know. And she did her PT. She did everything she was supposed to do up until a few years before she actually passed, when she was pretty sick. But wow, I mean,
Yeah,
she really kept it up. And that is such a gift that you can give yourself. So
I
don't
know.
shortchange your bones
Right.
because you want a little bit less fat around your belly. You've got
Mm-hmm.
to eat enough protein for your bones. You have to eat enough protein for your muscles.
Mm-hmm.
Give your body what it needs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So add in some weight bearing and some muscle building. So important. And I think that it becomes really addicting once you see yourself getting a little bit stronger. Like it just really fuels a fire of like, oh, I didn't realize I could, do bicep curls of 15 pounds. Like that's so far from the 3 pounds I first started. It's really interesting.
It
Um,
is.
I wanted to go back to something you said it gets in your head. That's a really interesting thought because I never would have said that, but as you said it, I see my patients sitting in my office crying. They're like,
Yes.
looking at their pants. They're so upset. It means a lot of things. Like I either need to buy new pants or I need to go to the store and spend money or just this loss of feeling of out of control. But what did it mean for you? What do you think it means for a lot of the women that you see in midlife and at menopause?
I think it's a loss of control. I think it's also a loss of youth. It really hits home that you are getting older. Now, of course, there are plenty of women that have sudden menopause and premature menopause and are probably dealing with this a lot younger. But when you add age on top of all the changes that a loss of estrogen produces, you're just kind of feeling deflated because like your weight maybe was a thing that you could control, or you had no thought. You didn't give it a second thought. There's plenty of women that don't give it a second thought. And then bam, right? They're 50, 51, 52. They're like, where did this weight come from? And that I find those women have the hardest time dealing with the weight gain because they don't really have any skills around calorie cutting, maybe because they've never had to, and
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. So that's a whole learning process. So the whole feeling of like this is out of control, my hormones, my life, my mood, my pants, it's out of control, and they just don't feel good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see that a lot. The woman who says, I never had to think about this before, and now I have to like think about it. Um, so that leads to my next question. When thinking about it, how do you like to start? We touched on like talking about calories.
Mm.
I know that there's different kinds of philosophies. There's calorie counting, there's macro counting, there's intuitive eating, there's mindful eating, there's like all these different things. Um, what kind of way do you find works best, or do you think it's individual? I think that's at least something that women can try to take back a little bit of control. But I think if like anything, if you obsess, you're also gonna lose it too. So what do you find works best to start?
So the way that we approach it in the book and the way that we approach it when we're speaking to our patients is whatever works for them. So, we gave people like 3 different ways to look at this in the book. And one, as I mentioned before, was the diet plans. Well, that to me is one of the most extreme ways, but it's also an educational way, because when you plot it out, you get an idea of what portion sizes should, and I'm putting that in air quotes, should be. I mean, it just gives you a guideline. You could take a look at your plate and say, okay, at every meal, I'm going to fill half of my plate with fruits and vegetables, 1/4 with grain, preferably a whole grain, and the other quarter with protein, high protein foods. And you could look at it that way. Or you could say, what, I'm really knowledgeable about this, and I just need to make a few tweaks. I will say, though, that what we have noticed is that it's really all about eating patterns. And we want to get women into an eating pattern in 2 different ways. One, what they eat, throughout the day. And the other is the type of foods that they're eating. So we're big fans of a plant-based, but not necessarily animal food free diet. That's not what we're talking about. You don't have to be a vegan or a vegetarian in order to get results. Not at all. But also we would like, and we think this works the best, for women to take a look at how they're eating throughout the day. And it's usually, and I'm sure if you've done a diet recall with your patients, that it's an inverted, not an inverted pyramid, but it starts out real small in terms of, the consumption. And then as the day wears on, the meals get bigger and bigger, and dinner is the really big one. And then there's eating after dinner.
Yeah, you're right.
We're real fans of tackling that after dinner eating. If you were only to do one thing, take a look at that, start swinging your calories back up through the day and see what happens. And even that one little change usually brings big results.
Really?
Yes.
Why is that?
Couple of reasons. One is because if you wait until the end of the day, you're really hungry. And, hunger is a basic
need,
right? Yeah. It's a need. You need to eat food in order for your body to work. So if you wait, you're going to be like an animal. We are animals, but we're like, oh, our brains, we're always so smart. No, hunger.
Eating all the cheese while you're cooking, and then you eat dinner. Yep.
You're starving. You are starving. What would your dog do if you pretty much underfed them all day, right? What would given the chance to get at food? We are the same way. We cannot underestimate that about ourselves. So what we do is we go overboard on dinner, and then we feel justified, like, well, I didn't eat much during the day, so I can have, I can sit down in front of the TV with this bag of chips or pint of Ben and Cherries.
I didn't eat anything all day. Oh, all I ate was, my Nutri-Grain bar, and I'm starving. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I say that.
I used to too, until I really, again, took a hard look at what I was doing. And so what the goal is to really not eat it all after dinner. That would be the ultimate goal. And women, when they hear us say, they're like, oh my God, how could I do that? Well, not every night. Like, you don't have to do it all the time, but you're eating too many calories. The other thing is that your body is much better at processing carbohydrates earlier in the day. So your body has a circadian rhythm, right? And so that, and so if you eat more in the earlier part of the day, and then you kind of have less at dinner and really nothing after dinner, you probably, you're working more with your body. You're not promoting fat deposition, because if you have extra glucose, it goes into your fat cells, and around menopause, it goes into the fat cells that are in your abdomen. Not all of it, but
that's why you get the meno-belly.
It just makes it worse. It just makes it worse. So you've got kind of 2 things going on there with nighttime eating. You're fighting your circadian rhythm, and you're probably overdoing it, because who's eating carrots and celery sticks on the couch watching Netflix? Nobody.
Nobody.
No.
Netflix and chill is an actual ice cream flavor.
Yes. It
The other thing that I think I see a lot, and it is not to pass judgment, is that maybe it's because the kids are gone or we're whatever, but there's more wine drinking, right? There's more alcohol. And what are the, and a lot of women will say, I don't want to give up my nightly glass of wine with my dinner or this or that. And certainly I'm leaving out just the other, health considerations for alcohol, thinking more about just in terms of weight and calories. If we're just kind of narrowing it to that, is that something that's pretty common that, alcohol consumption increases with each birthday? And
whether the kids are home or not, I mean, it seems to be
yes.
on the rise. And there is data that says that alcohol intake overall in women is on the rise. And certainly the pandemic has done nobody any favors. Right. So I think the issue here is, we tell women no more than one drink a day, right? For health benefits and also for calories. And they're like, yeah, okay, that's all I have. But when you really get down to brass tacks, not too many people, men and women, know what a drink is. So a standard drink is 5 ounces of wine. Measure that out, take a look at your favorite wine glass and draw a line and stick to it. That is one drink. So anything over that is going to be extra calories, and it is going to contribute to your intake. The other thing is it's disinhibitory nature, whatever, right? After one drink or 2 drinks, you're like, yeah, whatever, I'll eat that bag of chips. Yeah, it's okay. We can just have a bowl of popcorn for dinner, and you just like lose it. So that can happen too.
Yeah, I see that a lot, and I wonder about that. My other question for you is, gosh, you've really got me thinking about my poor eating habits in my, late 30s. I'm almost 40. So, if you could go back in time or so, this is going to sound like, I think this question's more for me than it is for you, but, is it better to start setting up these healthy eating habits now? Because I think then when we get to this point and everything changes, and now all of a sudden we need to pay attention to when we eat, what time we eat, what our portions are, that probably all matters. And I think about myself running after kids, and I'm constantly like picking up their goldfish bag, downing the rest on the way to the garbage. I mean, all those bad habits over time probably don't help.
No, they don't. They're harder to break. I mean, the older that you get, they're harder to break. So, start anytime. I mean, if you could start today, and it's never too late. That's really the message that I like to give people too, is that it's never too late to make changes for the better. But I hear you. I mean, I did the same when I was a young mother and running around and eating things that I shouldn't have off of their plates and whatnot. And, but I think part of that comes from not nourishing ourselves. I think you can still do that even when kids aren't in the house. So we're not eating enough to satisfy ourselves at meals, because now I look at food like that and I say, I could really care less about eating whatever I might have eaten 10 or 15 years ago. Because you have to get enough protein at every single meal, enough fiber. If you are satisfied, you're not going to be reaching for those things. Does it keep me from eating chocolate every day? Absolutely not. I have not cracked that nut yet.
No, there's no need to.
Why waste time on things that you can't really change? But has it really drastically cut down on all the picking on the refined carbohydrates, like you're mentioning, goldfish and whatever? Yes. And I think that when women feel satisfied, when they allow themselves to eat and not starve themselves and really nourish their bodies, they're going to be in a much better place to resist, the temptation. They'll be full. They won't want those foods.
Yeah. What's a typical day like for you? What's a typical day that you might eat? I bet people might want to know this.
Okay. So, every day, I'm such a creature of habit. For breakfast, well, I work out in the morning, and then for breakfast, I have a big bowl of cereal. It's a mixture of whole grain Chex and Cheerios. What a nerd!
But that's what you like.
I do love it.
Before we even go on, I think that it's important to I think what a lot of people do is they assume, well, I guess I can't do my creamer anymore, my coffee, because that's sugar, right? But that's not very nourishing and is right. And if you like checks, I think there's this idea that if it comes from whole foods and it's somehow organic, that's what's going to help, but that's probably not the case.
No, it's not. I mean, sure, it will have possibly fewer pesticides in it and things like that, but that won't do anything for your weight. I mean, that has nothing to do with it. It's really all about portion sizes. And it's so important, and we harp on this so much, to get 20 grams of protein or more in at
Each
breakfast.
meal. Yeah. Oh, at breakfast. Okay.
Meal, but breakfast is the hardest unless you're
Yeah.
eating eggs. And even then, it would be like 2 eggs and some cheese, or 2 eggs and a glass of milk. I mean, it's not easy. So what
Yeah.
I do is I drink a giant cup. I mean, literally my coffee cup is this big. Okay. And it's got a full cup of milk in it. And like you were saying, I drink 2% milk in my coffee. I drink an entire glass of 2% milk. And then I have milk in my cereal, and then
Yep.
all the other protein that's in the cereal. And there is some protein in the cereal and a little bit in the banana. I
Yeah.
manage 20 grams, but just barely. I mean, it's a tough meal to get your protein in. So you really have to get into a routine, so you know that you're getting enough protein at breakfast. So that's what I have for breakfast every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And lunch varies. Today I had a piece of leftover vegetable pizza, which had cheese on it, not just
Mm-hmm.
vegetables. And I had salad left over from last night, but I put cottage cheese in it because
Mm-hmm.
the
Protein. Yeah.
because that piece of pizza does not have enough protein in it. And
Mm-hmm.
cottage cheese is my go-to. It always fills in all the
I love
gaps.
cottage cheese. Mm.
You either love it or you don't, but I have a tip for that. And I think people don't like the texture. So
Oh,
you
I
can
love
put
it.
it in the blender.
Oh,
Yeah, yep, yep. And you can use it that way. And it's much more acceptable to people when
interesting.
it's like that.
I
Yeah.
love the texture.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
I
I'm
like,
probably one of the people who loves cottage cheese, right?
yeah, there's a few of us.
I like love cottage cheese. I used to eat it with ketchup. I know that's disgusting, but if I
I
could keep
haven't
this
tried that
podcast
yet.
memorable. And then what's after lunch?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I eat so much protein at lunch, and I make sure I have whole grains. Not today, I had pizza. It was like in a couple of and a piece of fruit, that am rarely hungry until dinner. And if I'm hungry, I have probably like an ounce of peanuts or walnuts or almonds. And the dog has a lot too. She always munches with me. She loves them. Or I go through phases, and one of my phases was frozen cherries that I would get out of the freezer, microwave them, and then combine them with about 3/4 of a cup of plain non-fat Greek yogurt. And
Mm,
cherries are sweet enough on their own, and it's got protein, and it's got fiber, and it's got all the wonderful things in it. It really, really is satisfying.
yeah.
And then dinner is usually like probably 5 or 6 ounces of chicken or fish, and vegetables and a whole grain. And then
Mm-hmm.
I always have chocolate every night. I just cannot break that habit. And like you said, why bother? So
Yeah.
I have about an ounce on a good night, maybe a little bit more on, a night when I'm,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more liberal, of dark chocolate, but not the 90%, unpalatable, not sweet chocolate. It's probably 70% or 65%. I like the sugar.
Yeah.
So that's really it. And I hope that, I mean, what I eat in a day is not what anybody else should eat in a day, for sure. But I hope that the protein message and the
Mm-hmm.
fiber, the
And
fruits and
the
vegetables.
inverted triangle, those are all super important. I always tell my patients, um, maybe you can correct me, but I'll say, I don't have a lot of time to do dietary recommendations in the office, nor is that actually my specialty. But I'll say, try to eat 100 grams of protein. If you do nothing else, just try to eat 100 grams of protein. That's
Yes.
what I tell people to do because I figure in doing so, you're getting so much calories from your protein that you're just not hungry for what we then usually end up reaching for is just extra carbs because we're just hungry. And I love the inverted triangle of eating more, earlier and then less in the evening. I kind of wanted to ask you, to debunk this idea that clean eating or sugar-free eating is the only way to lose weight. Now, I will have some patients who tell me, oh, when I cut out sugar, I feel better, or et cetera, et cetera. But is that something that people really necessarily need to do, like completely cut out sugar for just weight loss purposes only?
Depends on how much sugar you eat. So if you're eating so much sugar that you've got all these extra calories,
Mm-hmm.
um, coming in that are unnecessary, then cutting out sugar is good for you. I have a thing for sugar. I just told you that when I was talking about the chocolate, but I didn't tell you that I put sugar in my coffee and my tea. And it is not a little bit of sugar, but that's the only sugar that I eat. Everything is relative.
Mm-hmm.
So to have an absolute like that, like you're talking about when people ask you, if I cut out all sugar, I will lose weight. If I cut out all of this, I will lose. No, nutrition is relative. You were talking about having creamer in your coffee before.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
creamer in your coffee? Go
Mm-hmm.
ahead, have it.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, we all can't have everything that we want all the
All the
time.
time. So I
Yeah.
tell my 5-year-old.
Yeah, we're all just 5-year-olds, really, basically. So we're just grown-up 5-year-olds that want what we want all the time. And I mean, I'm the same way, but you have to have trade-offs. And so, no, I think the short answer is no, you do not necessarily have to eliminate all the sugar. But if you're eating, a huge bag of jelly beans and, cookies and candy and things like that, of course you're going to feel better when you cut that out because there's nothing else in there for your body except sugar.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you don't need that sugar.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about intermittent fasting?
So I've actually done a lot of research and written a couple of pieces about intermittent fasting. I'm a fan of one type of fasting, and it goes back to what we were saying before. If you can even call it fasting, it's more like time restricted eating. And
Mm-hmm.
that's really giving yourself a good 12 hours
Mm-hmm.
every day to just let that gut rest, let that metabolism rest, and
Mm-hmm.
let your blood glucose levels come back down to normal and stop
Mm-hmm.
feeding yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That goes back to what I was saying about not eating at night. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that 12-hour period, let's say you don't get home from work, you don't have dinner until 7 o'clock or whatever. Great. I mean, no one says you have to stop eating by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Um, that's just crazy. It would be for me, and it's disruptive to family life and for couples and things like that. But give yourself the 12 hours. Go
Mm-hmm.
from 7:30 to the next day 7:30 if you can do that, and and you can do that when you stop eating at night so much because you wake up hungry in the morning and you're ready for breakfast and you're ready for lunch and you're ready for a healthy snack. So the other types of fasting, no, not a big fan of. There's absolutely no research that says that that is any more effective for long-term weight control. And I know it could be a jump start for some people, and it gets them going. That's fine, but I think that we have to, really take a look at the research and say, if you want to just do mild calorie restriction, great, that is going to work for you just
Mm-hmm.
as well as intermittent fasting. And the other thing that really bothers me about intermittent fasting is I don't know how people who skip entire days of food get enough nutrients. How do you do that?
Yeah,
How
they're
do you cram all those things in that you need? Is it even possible?
Yeah, I think most people are probably just looking at purely the number on the scale, or, if their clothes can get on them and they don't have the muffin top. And I think that that's drives so much of behavior. And, the reality of the situation is that this is really about health. At the same time, it is feeling good. And so combining the two, I think is really important in the idea that you've said, I lost the 5 pounds and now I'm really consistent and I'm exercising every day. overall, you're probably so healthy, even though you may not be able to lose that last stubborn 5 pounds. I think there is this reality. And then also thinking about your health. So weight on the scale is just one measure: blood pressure, A1C, cholesterol levels, bone density, so many other important markers of health. This culture that we live in definitely values whatever cultural standard of beauty we're going by, in whatever year it is. But I think the message of, how these people are getting nutrients is they're probably not thinking about it. And it's time that we maybe shift that idea.
I agree with you. And I'm like, where are all the studies about, about the nutritional drawbacks of all of this? The other thing is that, during that time that you're eating, you really should be eating nutritional foods. And I have heard of many women who will do the 5 days, 5 days of eating and the 2 days off. And the 2 days off, because of the 2 days they take off during the week from eating, they just eat whatever they want the rest of the time. And
oh my gosh.
The calorie balance still comes out right for them. But what are they eating? It has to be good for your bones, your brain, your heart, every other part of your body at this point.
I think the big message, besides for the protein, the inverted triangle, I love those. And, mixing reality and defining what good health is that consistency is really important. Consistency can be really, really helpful. And setting up good, healthy patterns, which is easier said than done, can be really helpful so that you don't end up in the situation where all of a sudden you don't know who you are anymore and you have no idea how to get back there. But does that happen? Yes. And are there way back? Yes. So, well, Liz, it was so great to just pick your brain and hear about your journey. I loved getting to know you. And for those of you who've listened to this far in the show, fun fact is that we're getting to work together as I'm writing my book with my co-writer, Stacey Colino, and I'm so excited. So I get to work with Liz a lot, and more on that to come. You can find Liz and her partner on Instagram, where they chat all about menopause and midlife and diets, and that's at Menopause Diet Plan. I will link their Instagram handle and the book, The Menopause Diet Plan, which you should definitely check out. And thanks, Liz, so much.
Thank you. It's been a blast.
Yes. Well, I will talk to you soon. And thank you guys for listening in, and see you next week for a brand new episode.